let's talk about a situation that's playing out in small towns all over the country. We're going to zoom in on one historic town in California that just got some really tough news. The price of their water, well, it might need to jump by 65%. This is a story about old pipes, really hard decisions, and what happens when you wait just a little too long to fix a big problem.
Yeah, 65%. I just want to let that number sit there for a second. It's a huge, jarring figure, and it is right at the heart of this entire story. So let's unpack what it really means. Seriously, just imagine opening your water bill and seeing it had shot up that much. For the people living in Nevada City, this isn't some thought experiment. It's the very real and, frankly, very painful question that they are staring down right now.
So, how in the world does a city get to this point? I mean, a 65% rate hike doesn't just materialize out of thin air. This is a story about years of decisions, or maybe, more accurately, a lack of decisions that have all finally come home to roost. Okay, so this timeline really tells the story. You see, after a rate plan wrapped up way back in 2017, the city just stopped raising water rates. For 9 straight years, right up until today, the price residents paid for water was frozen in time. But you know what wasn't frozen? The cost of everything else: labor, energy, chemicals. It all kept going up. One council member, Gary Peterson, put it about as bluntly as you can. This isn't some new crisis. It's an old bill that's finally come due. Past city councils basically decided not to raise rates, kicking the can down the road. And now the current council is left holding the bag. And the consequences of kicking that can, they are, well, they're pretty severe. Because the rates didn't keep up with costs, the city's water fund is in big trouble on three fronts. First, their savings account is nearly empty. Second, their pipes and equipment are getting dangerously old. And third, they're spending way more money each year than they're actually bringing in. And when I say their savings are low, I mean it. Get this, the city's entire water operating reserve, their rainy day fund, is down to just $21,000 to run an entire city's water system. That's basically running on fumes. And this brings us to the very real, tangible risk here. We're talking about a system that has 100-year-old pipes under the ground. A single major water main break isn't just an inconvenience, it's a potential financial disaster. Just like Councilmember Peterson said, one bad break could easily cost $1 million to fix, money the city just plain doesn't have. And this is the path they're on. The chart shows it all. They're bringing in about $1.1 million, but their expenses are already higher than that. If nothing changes, that water fund is on track to be more than $3 million in the red within 5 years. That's just not sustainable. Okay, so faced with this pretty grim reality, the city did what you're supposed to do. They called in the experts. They hired outside consultants to do a full-blown rate study. Their job was basically to figure out just how deep this hole was and what it was going to take to climb out. A huge part of their recommendation comes down to this thing called a Capital Improvement Plan, or a CIP. Now, don't let the name fool you. It's actually a pretty simple idea. Think of it as the city's 5-year to-do list for finally fixing and replacing all that old, crumbling infrastructure before it breaks catastrophically. So the consultants came back to the council with basically two paths forward. Option one is the rip the Band-Aid off approach. Fund everything that's needed, including that big infrastructure plan. But, and it's a big but, that means swallowing that full 65% rate hike in the very first year. Option two is a smaller 48% increase, but it only works by doing the exact thing that got them into this mess in the first place, putting off the big essential projects. So what does all this mean for the average person's wallet? Let's break it down. If we look at that first recommended option, and you factor in the wastewater increases they also need, a typical combined monthly bill would go from just under $100 to almost $147. That's an extra $47 a month every single month. And this right here is where the numbers on a spreadsheet crash into the real world. You could just see it on the council members' faces. They were clearly torn between the undeniable mathematical need for this increase and the very real financial pain it would cause the people they represent. Council member Fleming really captured the feeling in the room right away. He acknowledged the sticker shock and then asked the question that was on everyone's mind. How can we possibly make this easier for the community to swallow? But then you had the counter-argument, which was just as powerful. Councilmember Peterson framed any delay, any attempt to soften the blow, as basically rolling the dice.
just gambling that a huge, expensive failure won't happen before they have the money in the bank to fix it. So this really became the heart of the whole debate. Do you do the painful thing now and just rip the Band-Aid off with one huge rate hike? Or do you try to, as they put it, smear it out over several years? That would soften the immediate hit for residents, but it means carrying a whole lot more risk in the short term. Now, it's really important to understand that the council did not make a final decision that night. They couldn't. Anytime a city in California wants to raise rates like this, it has to go through a very specific legal process that is designed to give the residents a direct say. And that process is called Proposition 218. Here's how it works. First, a notice explaining the proposed increase gets mailed out to every single person who pays a water bill. That kicks off a 45-day period where residents can submit written protests. It all leads up to a final public hearing, and only if a majority of property owners don't protest can the council then actually vote to approve the new rates. So where did they land at the end of the meeting? Well, the council decided that the immediate sticker shock of those first two options was just too much. They basically hit pause and told their staff and the consultants to go back to the drawing board. They want to see new options that try to smear out that initial hit, to find a more gradual, more palatable way to do what needs to be done. And that leaves Nevada City, and honestly countless other towns just like it, grappling with this really fundamental question. How do you balance what people can afford today with the critical, non-negotiable, and very expensive investments you have to make for tomorrow? It's a tough, tough balancing act, and there are absolutely no easy answers.